There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19.
Furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this podcast.
This is a That's Entertainment podcast.
Awesome.
Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome.
That was awesome.
You guys are awesome.
No, you're awesome.
You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kev, and this is the show where we normally sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. But this is our annual State of the Pod, and it's kind of appropriate that we're doing the annual State of the Pod on episode 167 on the actual anniversary of me podcasting. July 1st, 2007 is when I started, we started releasing podcasts. So I guess technically I've been podcasting longer. I'm sure we started recording in June of 2007. But on paper, July 1st, 2007 is when I started. That's 13 years of podcasting. And the reason I say it's appropriate that we're doing this on episode 167 is that while I was a co-host on the Stabcast, I think for about 200 episodes or something, maybe 150, I don't know. It was somewhere between 150 and 200 episodes, and probably was my second longest running stint on a podcast. Out of the shows that I've actually produced, Happy Hour, not the original Happy Hour with Steel Tip, but Happy Hour 2.0. That show was, that lasted 167 episodes, if I remember correctly. And so it's, I don't know, it's weird. It is a weird happenstance that happened. And on these State of the Pod episodes, I usually chat about a lot of things. This podcast, the podcast network, and that's entertainment in general. And those are likely going to be things I touch down on as well. Even though I don't have, there's things that are happening that I don't have the full information for, but those things will be revealed in due time. But So, I teased on Twitter that there was going to be a major announcement, and I'm not going to bury that lead at all. So, I it's been quite obvious that for primarily all of 2019 and this first half of 2020 here, I have not been producing a lot of content. And part of it is, 2019 was just... I had a mental breakdown. I had a mental breakdown in 2018 that I never fully recovered from, and the concentration last year was on live shows that we still have yet to put out and whatnot. And I recorded a few episodes here and there, primarily early on in 2019. But I took a lot of 2019 off and with full intentions of being ready to go here in 2020. And at least, I think I want to say February is when I was really like, all right, let's do this. Let's pull the trigger. And then the pandemic happened. The COVID-19 pandemic here that's, it really hit the U.S. hard in 2020, March. Pennsylvania specifically, we shut everything down I think March 16th or 17th. Schools shut down a week before that. And you'd think in quarantine I'd have all the time in the world to record and whatnot. And that wasn't really the case. I had other things happening and going on and whatnot. So what I ended up doing was really kind of thinking during this pandemic and thinking about, quite honestly, like the last 13 years of podcasting and how, like what am I trying to get out of this, and have I accomplished that goal? And I think every podcast and podcaster has different goals, and I would never say that in 2020 or since 2016, the Everything is Awesome era of podcasting, I would never say that my goal was to make it big. My goal was always, with Everything is Awesome, to have interesting conversations with people, and that's something that I feel like I succeeded at for the last 4.5 years. And I've had a blast doing it. It's definitely the most fun I've ever had doing a podcast. And that's because it led to, live shows, and it led to panels at cons and stuff. And I really enjoyed all that stuff. It brought me to talking to interesting people that I've really wanted to talk to. Aaron McGathy, James D'Amato, Jason Tabers are just like three of the names I can pull out of the top of my head to say they're people I want to talk to. Of course, the list goes on and on of all the interesting conversations I've had and all the new super friends that I've made over the last 4.5 years. There's also a list that I haven't been able to get to for one reason or another, whether it's me lacking the proper information to ask people, or flat out not getting responses. And these were all higher profile guests and whatnot. And, I wasn't expecting to ever get anyone on this show other than fellow podcasters. So the fact that I went beyond that and was able to sit down and chat with professional comedians, and actors and actresses and professional writers and stuff like that, it is nothing short of a miracle, if I'm being quite honest. I really, really enjoyed this run of the show, and I guess I am bearing the lead here. I'm taking a step back from the world of podcasting. After 13 years, I don't know that I have anything else to say in the world of podcasting. And this was not an easy decision to make. And honestly, there's a lot more that goes into it than that. Than simply not having anything to say. I mean, that's a portion of it, but there are some personal reasons as well that I've decided to step back. And that's not like I know me. I'm not going to stay away from podcasting forever. There's other things that I want to do in the world of podcasting that after some time off, I'll probably get back to. And after this episode, this is not the last episode of Everything is Awesome. We have a backlog. That's I think we have like 10 to 12 or so episodes in the backlog that we are going to get through and post. And that honestly gets us, I think, within like 20 episodes of episode 200. And there's a chance I'm going to try to do that final countdown of hitting that number of 200. But for all purposes, Everything is Awesome probably won't go beyond 2020. And I'm going to be trying to post the backlog on a weekly basis until we're through it. Maybe a bi-weekly, or maybe not bi-weekly, maybe twice a week until we're through it. But yeah, that's the big announcement. I'm stepping away from the world of podcasting for the time being. I have a feeling that the other shows I want to do are different and definitely a little bit more story driven and there's a definitive start and end to those shows that I have plans, and I want to take the time when I step away from podcasting. I want to take this free time and work on some other things that I have been trying to work on for the better part of 20 years. Writing a novel. I'm going to be 36 in 2 weeks here. And I think I was 16 when I started writing a novel in the Tellus universe. That, version 1 is actually, I finished a novel, which is awesome. But I never published it because it was garbage. It was absolute garbage. And 20 years later, I have yet to really commit myself to writing. I've told stories over the 20 years, and I've outlined stories. I'm a real good storyteller. I'm not a great writer. I often am a slacker in that department. So I'm going to be focusing on writing. I got a novel that I want to do. I have a screenplay. I'm a wannabe director. And that's going on about 11 years now that when I was 25, it suddenly hit me. I was like, hey, you know what? I'd love to direct movies, write and direct movies. So, that's been 11 years, and I guess I have directed a thing or two, a couple Kickstarter videos and a short that we did years and years ago. But, I've never really taken the time to sit down and write a screenplay and fine tune it down to the point where we're ready to shoot. And that's stuff I want to do. Because I'm 36, I'm on the back half of my 30s now, or I will be, and that's a scary thing, 10 years ago when I was 25, I was like, mid 30s is whatever, that's nothing, but at 35 and going on 36, with a family, and other people in my family dying, and just kind of really having my eyes open to the world of I might not be here tomorrow, whether it be cancer or fucking COVID-19, whatever it is. There could a bus, anything could be taking me out tomorrow. I guess my mortality has finally makes sense. I don't have that immortal feeling anymore. So, I'm going to be stepping away from Everything Is Awesome and all the other shows that I had planned, and the biggest disappointment, I think, which isn't not doing Everything Is Awesome. I feel like I've done what I wanted to do with that show. And I certainly will probably utilize that feed for any panels that I host or moderates in the future. And maybe I will land a interview that is on my bucket list. And I will post it there. But it's the after party show that I talked with Jeff Stormer about starting up, and unfortunately, we started that the month before my father was diagnosed with cancer, and in 2018, and that's kind of when I went downhill, and I just had a hard time doing things. So I'm very disappointed in myself for not being able to honor Jeff and his show the way that we had planned. That one day maybe that's something I can get back to. Who knows? But that is, I think, the biggest disappointment in leaving podcasting. Now, because of that, because I'm leaving podcasting, there's a lot of things that I pay for because I was hosting a podcast. And the things that I was paying for also run other things that I'm involved with. We'll stay in the field of podcasting, the That's Entertainment Podcast Network. While most of the shows have been on a hiatus because of the pandemic here, there's still shows that they're eventually coming back and whatnot, and but at the same time, like I at one point accomplished what I wanted to accomplish with the network, which was give a platform for diverse voices. And for a while, we were not a bunch of white dudes doing podcasts, and that felt really good. And then as I started, taking away responsibility from myself and putting the onus on the shows themselves, some of them stopped producing, or they went on and produced elsewhere. And that's fine. Like, I get it. Editing sucks. That's why I didn't want to do it anymore. And quite honestly, if I'm not podcasting anymore, I don't see why I would be paying for that anymore. And That's Entertainment is weird because it's not. Mike and I co-founded Crude Humor Studios together, which is the production company. But Mike developed That's Entertainment separately before Crude Humor Studios was officially a thing. And what we ended up doing was saying, okay, let's. I feel like if I want to do anything outside of podcasting with Crude Humor Studios, I need to chat with Mike to that. And the way what we worked out is he, while he's definitely a co-founder, you can't take that away. He's we pulled him out of Crude Humor Studios, and between it was never official, but Crude Humor Studios, myself, and Mike, through whatever means, we were eventually going to make it official, but we were a joint venture with That's Entertainment. Well, that was Mike's baby. We used that as the face of a lot of the things that we did because it kind of had a reputation already. But That's Entertainment Podcast Network is really just a rebranding of the HHWST.net podcast network / radio network. So that was under my ownership and still is. And we put it out to the shows what they want to do, because what Mike's going to take ownership of That's Entertainment again. While it's always been his, I've kind of been like the manager of that, and I have been running it more or less for several years now. Because Mike's been busy with Tellist and some other stuff that he's been doing and whatnot. And over the last few years, we've had various degrees of success of getting contributors to the site to help put out content. However, I was never able to get it to the point that it was consistent. But again, because I'm stepping away from Everything Is Awesome and podcasting, like there's all that stuff I'm not going to be paying for anymore. So obviously Mike's going to be taking over the domain again, and we're figuring out to what degree That's Entertainment is going to exist, and that the next iteration of that. The podcast network really depends on the other shows, and if the other shows still want to produce content and still want to be part of the network, then That's Entertainment Podcast Network will live on, and I will continue to be the owner, and I will continue to be the program director for that. But this iteration of it is going to put nearly 100% of the responsibility on the shows to make sure they're editing in the stingers, make sure that they're promoting each other, and to make sure that they're posting their shows and uploading their files and creating the featured images and whatnot. While I don't have an answer for That's Entertainment Podcast Network or That's Entertainment officially, those things, especially That's Entertainment, will likely live on in some manner beyond August of this year. We just don't know what that is yet. In the meantime, I'm going to be writing. And right now, I'm until I get all the hosting stuff figured out. Right now, I'm at thatnerdykev.wordpress.com, or of course at thatnerdykev on Twitter. Eventually, nerdykev.com will be the site that takes you to the blog I'm running now. And my blog is going to end up being, I'm going to try to do it routinely. So far, like for the most part, like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing has been working with me integrating film reviews into there as well. However, there's no set schedule for that. And I'm just going to be blogging about writing and about podcasting and about my life, and stuff like that. And it's just going to be a fun little thing that I do. And I've found a way to do it when I'm not spending $300 to $500 a year. I'm going to be spending, I think, like $40 or $50 a year. And that's much more manageable, especially when I'm not hosting a podcast. So that's a big announcement. It's not really actually a good thing if you're a fan of this show, and I apologize for that. I will let you know that we got, I think, 4 to 6 more panels, 2 more live shows to post up there. Plus, we have interviews with my buddy Garrett Smith, Aaron Catano Saez, and we got some quick little reviews from some Marvel movies that happened in 2018 and 2019. So we are going to be posting that stuff, and we're going to be, if I happen to record with, I was supposed to record with Zach from Heart Points Pod. I'm still planning on doing that if he's up for it. I'm hoping to get us to episode 200. I don't know that that's going to happen. Realistically, we may just get to episode like 182-ish. But, I want to thank everyone that's been involved with me in podcasting, all the super friends, all my, actual, real life friends that have helped with the show. All my guests that have been part of the show, Mike, especially for the live shows and the panels. Garrett has been a part of that stuff as well. Every podcast that I've ever worked with when it comes to, putting on events and whatnot. The Philadelphia Podcast Festival for really kicking my ass into gear for doing live shows, which led to doing live panels. Philadelphia Comic-Con, Wizard World for allowing me to do panels there. Keystone and PAX Unplugged for giving me press passes, so I didn't have to pay to go there. All great stuff that I was able to do because of this podcast. So thank y'all. If you want to read what I'm writing about, thatnerdykev.wordpress.com for now, eventually nerdykev.com. But of course, you can always just go to Twitter at thatnerdykev. Hit me up there, and we'll chat. I'm always open for a conversation about pop culture, Batman, the Marvel universe, the DC universe, Kevin Smith stuff. And of course, Kevin Smith, if you're listening, I need you on the show. I would love for you to be episode 200. That would be a great way to go out. I thank you guys so much for allowing me to have the best 4.5 years of podcasting with Everything Is Awesome. And that's saying something because that's only a fraction of the 13 years I've been doing this. So again, you'll hear from me in mid-rolls and stuff in all our backlog episodes. So current day Kev is not done recording, but he sees the sunset and he's walking towards it. Thanks, guys, for everything. Stay awesome.
Everything is Awesome is a production of That's Entertainment Podcast Network in association with Croonhammer Studios. Croonhammer Studios is a Philadelphia-based production company specializing in audio, video, and live performances. You can find more information at croonhammerstudios.com. Thanks for listening, Super Friends. We've been awesome.
This episode of Everything is Awesome is brought to you by Tellus. Tellus is a fantasy world created by Michael D'Angelo. Spanning 15 novels and novellas, Tellus is a place of magic and splendor, where great heroes fight for the people. Some of these heroes are blessed with the strain, granting them uncanny abilities. The Tellus universe is medieval superhero fantasy with steampunk elements that mix with several different mythologies. With so much to choose from, the world is in your hands. Get more information, purchase the books, and discover the world of Tellus at Tellus.com.
Podcast Network. Entertainment and culture. Artist-owned, fan-supported.